Ever wonder what it takes to push through over 800 kilometers of rugged terrain, scorching heat, and sleepless nights? What is the secret behind winning your first ultra cycling race as a rookie? Stay tuned to find out more. Welcome back to another episode of the Buzzalong show. I'm your host Sherry. Today we're gonna dive into one of the toughest gravel challenges in Europe, Badlands. But first I want to introduce you to Buzzing News, where I give you the latest updates in the world of adventure cycling. First up, chasing records. Is that a new trend? This month we have pro cyclist Lachlan Morton setting a record pace in his journey around Australia, and Lyle Wilcox just finished her world record attempt circumnavigating the globe in just 108 days. In the world of ultracycling, we had the first edition of Alps Divide, where riders tackle extreme weather conditions including snow, storms, and rain, with temperatures of up to -8 degrees, which leads me to the question of the month. Are ultracycling races getting too extreme? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And we have two upcoming ultra races to look out for. First, Istraland, which is an off-road one starting in Slovenia, and then Transpyrenees from Los Dots, which is a mix of control points and parkours, tackling some of the more remote areas in the Pyrenees. For sure, plenty of action for dot watchers, so stay tuned. If you don't want to miss the latest news, routes, and videos, make sure to sign up for the Buzzalong newsletter, link in the description, and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify. It really helps to support the channel. This month I'm joined by Danni Shrosbree, a pro gravel cyclist that smashed it in her first ultra cycling race, taking the win in the pairs category in Badlands together with her partner Bradley. Welcome to the show, Danni.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people struggle with my surname, but you did a pretty good job there.
Yeah, I wonder, is that's why you have a strawberry on your name?
Yeah, it is. When I was racing on the road, that's where it began, really. I used to race in Europe quite a lot, and commentators, I don't know why, people just, I think there's this different town in the UK that's Shrewsbury, but it's like Bury at the end. And a lot of people know about that town, so they just assume my surname is Berry. And then sometimes I get called Strawberry, like they just read my name as Danni Shrosbree. And then it kind of stuck because some people heard it. And now, yeah, people just seem to know me as Danni Shrosbree. So I just roll with it.
I think that's really cool. I have the same. Every time people struggle with my name, like Sherry, I just say like the fruit, but with S, and people
Cherry.
remember you.
That's a good idea.
We are sweet.
Yeah, exactly.
So cool to have you in the show. Well, we've met briefly at the beginning of Badlands. I saw you on the road with your partner, Bradley, and congratulations. I mean, you really smashed it on the race, winning the first category. And I'm wondering, this was your first ultra cycling race, that right?
Yeah. First ultra. I did not know what to expect. I think anyone who does their first ultra, they'd probably look at it like, oh my God, this will be an amazing challenge, but you don't really realize how hard it is going to be mentally and physically. So yeah, I mean, it was about a year ago that I planned to do Badlands. And yeah, it wasn't until I was actually in it and doing it, I realized how hard it was going to be. But yeah, it was an amazing experience, and I absolutely loved it as my first ultra for sure.
I mean, you are a pro gravel cyclist and for sure plenty of experience off-road, but this race is quite different. What made you sign up for this kind of long event?
Yeah, I mean, the furthest races I've done is like Unbound and the Tracker. So the furthest they are is 360 kilometers. And like versus Badlands, that was 800k with so much climbing and obviously through a desert. So very, very different to any other racing I've done. But yeah, I mean, for me personally, I've always done sport since I was young to quite a high level, and I think I just love a challenge. And I just that my pairs partner had done it the year before, Brad, and he was like, and I was dot watching him the whole time, and I was like, this is so cool, like riding through the night. Like, I suppose when you're thinking about it but you haven't done it yet, you're just like, that would be so fun. And I was I was like, yeah, maybe I want a challenge like that. So kind of signed up to it, and more sort of as like I want to test myself and see if I can do this. I think because of my hectic lifestyle where I was on a semi-pro road team before and working full time, like sleep, I never really got much, to be honest. I was always training at 5 a.m. So I was like, I reckon sleep deprivation I'll be okay at. But it's one thing just, having not much sleep, but then having to ride through the night was quite something. But it was just more a personal challenge. But I also have the competitive side. So I didn't want to just get round the ultra. I obviously wanted to do quite well at it at the same time.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And why signing up as a pair instead of solo?
It's so funny because a lot of people on the outside that look at Badlands, they're like, it's so much easier as a pair. And it's actually, it really isn't, because if one of you, the time, obviously time, you know what it's like, stopping time is so crucial in an ultra. And it's very hard when you're doing it with someone else that everything's going to go smooth. So like, I don't know. We just did it as a pair because me and Brad ride together all the time. And we know that we get on very well. We know that we understand how each other rides. And I think that's really important if you're going to do it as a pairs race. But obviously you can't help the unknown in these situations. So for us, it was actually pretty stressful because not in terms of with each other, but 90 kilometers in, I actually had quite a bad crash. So my there was like a rut that Brad actually, his bars slipped, and we saw so many people when they hit it, bottles were flying out. Quite a few people actually crashed at this point. But my bars like fully slipped round, where essentially I was just like riding along, holding my bars down until I had to commit to crashing. And then my rear mech got bent, my Wahoo mount and light mount broke, like snapped off. So then obviously this is 90 kilometers in and we've got 700k to go. So it was about using our initiative, like taking the time to fix what we could. And annoyingly, it meant that I was restricted with gears. And obviously that's when as a pair, it's like, I was grateful that I had Brad because he understood it and he just dealt with it. You know, we both kind of just got on with it. So like the first night, it was quite a challenge for us because I had to tape on my light, but it meant that the mount wasn't pointing in the correct direction anymore. So I was like solely relying on Brad's descending lines and things like that. So it was, doing it as a pair is definitely stressful. But I think it's also when you're at the lowest point, it's also nice to have someone there. I mean, you've experienced both sides, right? So there are probably times when you're on your own, you're like, oh, it'd be nice to be with someone. But then it's also nice to be on your own and just crack on.
Yes, exactly. I think I can relate with what you said. A lot of people ask me, what's the advantage of racing as a pair but drafting? I mean, in Badlands, there's not really drafting because there's no like flat stretches. It's always up and down. So there's not really drafting there. So as you said, the moral support maybe in these difficult moments.
Yeah. You remind each other of points that you've probably, like one of you might have forgotten, which is quite nice. So I think when Brad the year before, because during the race, I kept going, do you remember this part? He was like, no. So it's been quite nice to like remind each other. But a lot of people have said, will you go back and do it solo? And I might. I'm not saying no, but I don't know if that'll be next year or what, but I'll definitely do it again, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And for example, did you do any specific preparation for this race? Did you change something like, let's say, compared to when you train for your gravel races? Because these ones are shorter and really fast paced? Did you change
Yeah.
anything on your training and
It's
approach?
quite funny. So like I do like I already like doing like long endurance stuff, which obviously
Mm-hmm.
helps. But it's quite funny because actually the weekend before Badlands, I was racing in Belgium doing a UCI race, which was so
Yeah.
opposite of Badlands. It was like
Mm-hmm.
full gas for 4 hours, like yeah, very opposite. But the kind of early on in the year, I was doing some longer days, and doing so I did a night ride for like I think it was like 14-hour night, and I started in the dark just to get used to riding because I have like I've ridden
Mm-hmm.
in the dark but not all through the night. So I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to test my equipment. I wanted to test, yeah, how I felt riding through the night and things like that, and getting used to descending in the dark because it is so different, and doing it
Yeah.
obviously at slightly sleep deprived. But yeah, and other than that, like, I mean, you might agree, but I feel like ultras is such a mental game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, yeah, it's about just getting in, finding your rhythm, and just cracking on, and obviously being sensible because you do get so tired, and that's when you do start making some mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think on the second night, I started like hallucinating on the
Oh wow.
descents, which was quite wild. So I took we took 2 5-minute naps,
Mm-hmm.
um and then it's crazy because everyone's like 5 minutes, but you know it's like 5 minutes is feels forever when when you're doing an ultra, and you sleep. Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, it's probably that night ride was probably the biggest thing I did in terms of preparation because I knew
Mm-hmm.
that I could do long days. I wasn't really worried about that. But yeah, the
Wow.
night stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, night riding is definitely another thing. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I only did. I think yeah, in some of the races I did 2 nights in a row, but it was absolutely horrendous. So I decided in Badlands to take a hotel. I didn't check the tracker the whole race, and I was like, okay, let's see where is the first one. And then I said, no chance. So then I took a 4 hours hotel, did my laundry,
Nice.
did an
Oh, love
Instagram
that.
reel, and I was like, okay, let's just enjoy.
That first night was just awful for me because I could barely see on the descents. So I
Mhm.
was like praying for the sunrise.
Yeah, I saw you had your light taped to your Wahoo computer
Oh,
in some
yeah.
of the pictures, and I was like, "Wow, what
Yeah.
happened there?"
Yeah. I mean, it was all pretty rough descendings, really, wasn't it? It was very bumpy, and that's where I know how Brad rides. We ride together a lot, and that's where I suppose the pairs bit was a benefit because I trust him. So I
Hmm.
just had to stick as close to possible. And I mean, he's an insane descender as well. So
Yeah.
I had to just stick close to him. And he obviously, we did have to slow down that first night, which was frustrating for us, but we just had to play it safe on the first night.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, the second night when I had my head torched, Brad was like, it was like you're possessed. I could like suddenly see descending,
Yeah.
and you know, like the riverbed, like going through the riverbed, I just went into like full send mode basically and was like, I can see, let's go. Don't just, if you're riding with someone and they do something that annoys you, you need to clear that before you start the race and be like, look,
Hmm.
you can't do that because that's going to frustrate me. And yeah, and I think that's what we were really confident in, not having any issues because we do ride together all the time. And I mean, it was funny because Brad was adamant about not having caffeine,
Hmm.
because he didn't want the lows, whereas I work quite closely with Precision Fuel and Hydration. Like I've all worked with them
Yeah.
throughout the year, and I like caffeine gels because they, you know, they do definitely help you.
Yeah.
So like we spoke to the guys, and they were like, "Look, Brad, if you don't want to have any caffeine, fine." And then during the actual race, like during the night, I could see Brad was like getting a bit tired, and then I just said, "Can you just stop being stubborn and take a caffeine gel?" And like sometimes you have to be a bit hard with each other, but
Yeah.
like it in the best way. And then he took a caffeine gel and was like flying, and he was like, "Okay, I don't know why I didn't want to take caffeine. I'm fine now."
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite funny. But
It was interesting. We were talking with Emily, and she mentioned that you were doing the Badlands from Precision Fuel and Hydration. Did you have a plan, a strategy of how many carbs you will have per hour, electrolytes, caffeine? Did you have
yeah,
like a race strategy written down?
yeah. So we had we spoke to the guys prior to the event, and these kind of events you have to be realistic with as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you can have a rough idea where you want to stop, but like, I mean, it's like 60K on a map could be a couple of hours or it could be
Yeah.
4 because of the Badlands terrain, right? Like, and I think that's what was hard. Like, we were just doing it, like, because even Brad did it, yes, the year before, but it was so different. The course was different because of the weather. It was cold, whereas this year it was so hot.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew that the first 4 hours we wanted to go off quite hard to just stay in
Yeah.
like up at the front. Prior to crashing, but so we were like, let's fuel as if we do our normal 4 hours races, so like, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
70 to 90 grams of carbs, and
Yeah.
then after that, like, the guys were like, you're never going to be able to do 90 grams of carbs in an ultra, which you don't need to do
Mm-hmm.
either,
Yeah.
and that's what I think a lot of people don't realize. But like, when you're just trying to keep going, like, the pace does drop down, and then you don't
Yeah.
obviously need as many carbs, but it's about staying on top of hydration. So we took, like, both of us were carrying 10 60-gram carb mix things. So like,
Mm-hmm.
during the night especially, we were just fueling on carb mix.
Yeah.
And obviously you have to be comfortable with the stuff you're using. Like, I use it all the time, so like, I knew I could stomach it, and I think that's the biggest thing for people, is using what you're used to. And then we did have gels, chews, and caffeine gels, and then, like, we planned, like, we knew at Gore that we wanted to get like bread
Mm-hmm.
and actual food and see it as
Mm-hmm.
like dinner, if you like.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then we made like cheese baguette at one stop. But yeah, honestly, it was probably like 20 to 30% shop food, and then the rest was precision fuel and hydration.
And how did you find? Did you have any bocadillos or the resupplies in the shops? I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
it can take a long time.
Oh yeah.
So,
So that's what we kind of wanted to avoid, and especially Gore, like, that town is amazing when everyone comes out, like the whole village, don't they, come out? But yeah, that's what we were conscious of. So we're both vegetarians, so
mm,
we didn't want to get a ham sandwich or anything because they just give you the baguettes, right? You don't know what's in them. So
yeah,
we just bought, it was quite funny. Brad asked for 4 baguettes thinking they were small, like plain ones, and they brought out
yeah,
4 massive sticks. So then we were like, honestly, we were like animals. We were just like snapping these baguettes up and putting them in our pocket. But then honestly, this baguette was so stale in the night that I was like, I think I need to give this to the birds. Like, I can't
yeah.
carry this stale baguette around anymore. But yeah, so there was this, just before that we were walking on the beach. 510K in. This is part of the course on the beach. Oh, my throat. This has been the most savage race ever. There's a shop
Yeah.
there, and that's where we actually probably sat down and had our like only main stop, if you like, of a cheese baguette and some
Mm-hmm.
Pringles and Fanta lemon, and then yeah, it was back on the bike and just having what we had on us, really. Yeah, I
Yeah, I
love
think
it.
the most important is also not to run out of energy. It's really
Oh,
easy to
definitely.
underfuel during these events.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that was the biggest thing. The precision guys, they were like, just like constantly think, like, just look at your Wahoo, and like, if you're having one thing an hour, like, you'll be fine, but you just got to make sure, because I think it's so easy when you get tired you're focusing on where you're going, the directions, especially in the dark, and then you suddenly realize you've not eaten or drank anything for like 2 hours. So yeah, that's what the main thing. And I suppose that would be a benefit of the pair, right? It would be like,
Yeah.
have you eaten, like reminding each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, no drafting.
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of your bike setup, is there something that you will change or that you said, oh, was a game changer for Badlands?
So I had the Lauf fork on the front,
Mm-hmm.
which was super nice on the descents because actually where I crashed, I really hurt my elbow. So
Mm-hmm.
every bump was so painful, but I think it would have been so much worse if I didn't have the Lauf fork on. So the
Yeah.
Lauf fork is kind of it's like it has a bit of a flex in it so that it can take the bumps pretty well,
Yeah.
which was super good. I actually ran mechanical
Ooh.
for yeah, which everyone was like, that's brave.
Yeah.
But it was Shimano. Then I was able to run a 51, which would have been
Mm-hmm.
amazing if I didn't crash. But the problem was
Yeah.
I couldn't get into the 51 gear after I
Oh.
crashed. It kept
Mm-hmm.
like flipping over. So I think genuinely, I think my chain fell off 50 times,
Oh
and
no.
that's when I was like, Brad was very good at like we just like the way we dealt with it, especially in the dark. We realized it was quicker if Brad shone his light on my chain and then I'd just do it like because
Mm-hmm.
it was so easy just to forget that I couldn't go into that gear, especially on some of those climbs, and
Yeah.
it would just flick over. So yeah, I mean, otherwise the mechanical, because we were saying if I crashed how I did on the DIT, we don't know if the mech would have totally broke.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was pretty good that I ran that, to be honest.
So we're gonna play a fun game. So I'm gonna start a sentence about Badlands and then you can continue it. I wish.
I didn't crash in the first 90k.
My biggest mistake was.
When I crashed, I snapped my mount.
The best part was.
The landscapes and the epic journey.
And now we got some questions from the audience. I'm afraid of riding solo.
Oh,
How do you combat something like that?
I think if you're worried about riding solo, I'd say, and you want to take on an event like this, then either, I don't know, maybe try doing it as a pairs. Like I've never done an ultra by myself. But obviously it's something I definitely want to do. But yeah, I'd say honestly that just have trust in the organizers as well. That if it is an epic challenge that you want to do solo, like, there's things in place to make sure that like the event is doable solo. So just have trust in yourself and your equipment and go to an event as prepared as you can, and then you'll probably
Awesome.
be okay.
How do you manage booty pain?
Booty pain. I make sure you have a chamois that you like ride in regularly and you've used previously. Don't do an event like this wearing shorts you've never worn before. And I actually carry chamois butter travel pouches, and apply that a lot during the ultra.
Some people ask how you fit training around
Yeah,
work. Any tips?
I used to get up very early. In all honesty, it wasn't, yeah, it was doable, but I used to get up at 5 a.m. and get out and do a few hours before work. But I would also say, yeah, depending on the event, just manage it well. Don't overdo it. If you need to, like over winter, focus your endurance stuff at the weekend and just use your weekdays as like I don't know, if you've got to do a turbo trainer, do your high intensity stuff on that.
Where
Yeah,
are you from?
definitely do that. So I'm from Dorset originally, but I lived in London
Mm-hmm.
for 9 years. So London, I suppose, is more home, but I now live in Girona.
What's your next plans? What's on for this year?
Yeah, so I was here in Girona this weekend. There is a UCI gravel race that I was going to do, but I decided to focus on training because in 2 weeks' time it's the
Hmm.
Gravel World Championships in Belgium. So I'll be off going to do that one, and then the week after that is the Gravel Earth Final. So it's like 2 hours north of Girona. It's a race called Rankso,
Yeah.
which is quite a big one for me. And then I might make one more trip back to the US to do Big Sugar, but that's kind of a
Yeah.
TBC. But
Oh,
then
that
I will be
sounds
done
really
for the year,
a busy schedule.
finally.
Quite cool events.
Yeah,
Yeah.
still busy. Yeah,
Oh,
a
that's
busy
really
October,
cool.
but it should be
Well,
fun.
thank you so much for joining us today, Dan. It's been great to have you in the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been good fun.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe if you are watching on YouTube and to rate the show if you are listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It really helps to support the channel. You can find all information and resources we talk about in the links in the description and exclusive discounts. Until the next adventure.